Good morning. That was a great transition slide, wasn't it? To see the transportation shot there from our last speaker. Well, we're going to look forward 50 years here, but for me to really start to look forward 50 years, I think it's important just for us to think back a little 50 years into where we were at the time. 50 years ago, well, 5 years plus 50 years ago, in 2008, I'm sure everyone in this room was joining with all the transportation nerds in this country, and you were celebrating the 50th year anniversary for the interstate system. That was a fairly remarkable thing, but when you think back, it's only been 50 years that we've had the interstate system. I think most of us cannot imagine what our lives would be like without that in place today. 5 months ago, we celebrated the opening of the I-15 core project here in Utah County, and here we have a little bit of shot here of the Center Street interchange that we fully reconstructed. Now, the point of why I'm bringing this up is important, because 50 years ago, when they were building the interstate around the country, they bought extra right-of-way, and we had more room in that right-of-way. And so when we reconstructed this facility this last time, we filled it up. We went out to the right-of-way lines. We had to buy property from owners at the interchange locations, but by and large, we were able to fit all these extra lanes within the right-of-way of those of the existing highway. And when we think about that, we say, you know, that was incredible foresight that our predecessors had who were designing these transportation systems. They provided for those that came after them. And we've been wondering and thinking hard about, well, we've filled up the right-of-way, we've used up everything that was given to us. What are we doing to help provide for the future for our kids and their kids? Because there's not going to be any more room to widen these highways. Now, some people will quickly go and say, well, let's double-decker this thing. But who really wants that in their backyard? It's not really, I don't think, the solution. So there's a lot going on in this world, in the transportation world, and it's really quite exciting. And some of the previous speakers have touched a little bit on it. But one of the things that we have in Utah that is absolutely unique, it's the only state in the country, we have what we call the Unified Long-Range Plan. Now, it's a 30-year plan, so we haven't gotten to 50 years yet. But what we've done is we've taken the long-range plans from all of our metropolitan planning organizations, as well as the long-range plan for our entire rural area of the state, and we've combined that together into one plan. So we know what we need to do from the maintenance perspective, from the capacity perspective, and from the safety side of things. So that is really, I think, a great document for us as we move forward. But that doesn't get us to 50 years yet. Now, as a Department of Transportation, we're working on 4 very concise goals. These are outcome goals that we think are important to our customers, you folks. Those goals are we preserve the infrastructure. If we keep the infrastructure in good shape, it's going to last longer and it's going to cost less. We're going to improve mobility. Now, improving mobility is a very broad term. It could be adding lanes. It could be doing interchange fixes, intersection fixes. And I'll touch a little bit about that now as we move forward. But we're going towards 0 fatalities. Think about a day when nobody dies on our roads. Over 170 Utahns died on Utah roads last year. It's an incredible drop that we've had, but it's still much too much. We had over 300 people die on our roads 12 years ago. And you've seen the increase in population from Mike's presentation, and you are a more mobile society than you were just 10 years ago. You're driving more miles. And if you were to think about what you were doing 10 years ago versus now, that's true. And our 4th goal is we're trying to improve the economy. So what are the things we can do in transportation to provide that foundation for Utah to continue to grow? So that's kind of the context of what we're trying to achieve. Some of the technologies that are coming down the pike right now are truly remarkable. Vehicle-to-vehicle communication. There are things right now going on in some of the newer cars that a lot of us don't even realize is happening. But we have the ability right now for vehicles to communicate with other vehicles. And I saw a demonstration on this several years ago, what the Federal Highway Administration calls a crashless intersection. 2 cars approaching the same intersection. The cars know when the traffic lights are about to turn. Both cars approaching this. And it can tell whether or not a car is stopping quick enough if the one that was going to get the red light. And the intersection was able to alert both drivers to what was happening. And if the drivers didn't take corrective action, they were able to slow the car down, one of the cars down, and actually keep those cars from entering that same space at the same time. Those are the types of things that are happening that are going to get us to zero fatalities. Things such as, right now, there's adaptive cruise control. And there's vehicles out there right now where, when we set our standard cruise control, you're going to go whatever, 65 miles an hour, and it doesn't matter if there's a car that's slower in front of you, that cruise control is going to keep going 65. Today, the technology knows when that car in front of you, it knows it's there, it knows how far away it is, and it knows how fast it's going. And your cruise control will automatically slow down to be able to provide that correct spacing that we need. And now I want you to think about the spacing, because that's an important concept. Because we designed this interstate out here for 30 years. And everyone says, what's next? Well, we have a certain amount of spacing that we design for vehicles to have safe stopping distances. And so part of the future is going to be finding ways to cut that down. Now, Cisco, a technology provider that's been working with the automobile industry, the Federal Highway Administration, and the DOTs around the country, estimate that just this vehicle-to-vehicle communication will provide an 8% drop in crashes, 10% lower road costs, and a 3% drop in carbon monoxide. Now, one of the other, here's the crashless intersection that I talked to you about earlier, where the cars are now talking to each other. And there's all kinds of technology that are taking place. You may have seen on the news last night about ambulances in the Salt Lake area now able to change traffic lights so they can get patients to the hospital quicker. That's a technology that we've been installing in our signals so that the ambulances are talking to those traffic signals and changing those lights so that they don't have to come to a stop. I skipped, sorry. Vehicle-to-vehicle infrastructure communication. I want to talk a little bit about this. And one of the things we started doing back in 2001 is we recognized what was coming at us, that we are going to be in a place where not only are cars talking to each other, but cars are talking to the infrastructure. And so what we've been working on every project we do, we've been putting fiber optic or conduits in the side of the roadway to be able to provide a backbone of communication statewide. We partner with our telecommunication providers to trade out conduit in some of the urban areas, and they provide us fiber connections to some of the more rural communities. And it's been helpful to those rural communities as well as for us. Because what we can do now is we can adjust traffic signals. Now, I hear an awful lot from people, they say, when are you going to time those traffic lights? Well, the traffic lights are timed. The problem is things change so fast. People change patterns, you get vehicles entering at different locations on the road, and so we need a way to be dynamically changing traffic signals and timing. We're working on that right now. One of the things that this is going to do and is underway right now, and several car manufacturers have technology, is a technology to recognize people. So a lot of the car manufacturers now have a technology, and it works about 20 to 30 miles an hour. It can recognize the shape of a person and will take over and stop a car if you're about to come across a person to keep them from injuring a pedestrian. Honda is the manufacturer that has it working at up to 50 miles an hour right now, so they're a little farther along on this. And I'll just conclude with this driverless car. This is the Google car right now. There are 3 states in the country where you can get a license to operate a car without a driver: California, Nevada, and Florida. And Michigan and New Jersey are working towards that end as well. There's been over 300,000 miles driven by the Google car without any crashes. The future is going to be, think about what we're going to leave our kids, because the fiber optics is going to allow us to communicate with those vehicles. That's going to be the way we're going to get with short-range communication. But we're going to put driverless vehicles bumper to bumper at higher speeds, and we're going to be able to put 2 to 3 times more vehicles on a highway than we can today. And that's what we're envisioning is going to be the way that we're going to address the additional mobility that our society is going to need. Now, in conclusion, there's this little issue about money. And everyone in the transportation industry understands, just a little issue, understands that right now, most of the transportation in this country is provided with the gas tax. The gas tax does not grow with inflation, and it's not keeping up with the needs. I believe the future in transportation is going to be more of a use-based fee, in that you will be charged based on time of day. So the more congested a roadway is, and the more miles you drive, that charge will be applied. So if you choose to drive at off-peak hours, you'll get a lower cost than if you choose to drive during the peak hours. And the theory is the same thing that we're doing on our express lanes out here, where we're trying to use the power of the dollar to influence behavior to be able to maximize the resources that you've all invested in your transportation system. So those are just a few thoughts that I have in terms of what's coming at us over the next 50 years. I can guarantee this. We did not think things would change as fast as they have, and I know they're going to be changing faster than I can even imagine right now. So it's really exciting for everybody. Thank you for your time.